Again for being here. We were setting up our interpretation. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with everybody. We currently have a Spanish interpretation available if you're joining us via Zoom, and we have Khmer interpretation available if you're joining us via Zoom. You're going to look for that globe. You're going to select the language of your preference. And again, English speakers, I recommend that you select English as well, so you can drown out the other channels. If you're watching us on YouTube, you're also getting it, you can have it streamed in Spanish or in Khmer. So again, thank you for being here. You can be in so many other places, but we thank you for joining us this afternoon. We hope to have great information for you. And so without further ado, I want to go ahead and call our meeting to order this afternoon at 2:33 p.m. As a reminder, our Dcac objectives, why do we meet? Why do we gather together? Well, our main goals are to act as a liaison between the district and the schools. And so we discuss specifically Title I school and items that are pertinent to them. And so we want to make sure that our parents are participating, our guardians are participating, and then they can go ahead and share this information back at their school sites. And so we want to make sure that during this time, we're providing training and information for parents to maximize your roles as our partners in education. And then ultimately, we want to be able to take your recommendations specific to Title I back to our Board of Education as advisements. We are lucky today to be able to invite 3 guests. We have Rebecca Fast, who's joining us again from Parent University. If you recall, she was here with us at the beginning of the school year, giving us timelines, and Stephanie Heilig was also here giving us timelines around high school choice and middle school choice. And so now we are almost mid-year. And so she's showing us where we are in the progression of that timeline. We also have Mr. James Suarez, who's going to be giving us an addendum and a revision to our Lcap. And visiting us from our Office of Curriculum, Instruction, and Professional Development is Tammy Lavelle. Last time we met in December, many of you had questions about the tutoring initiative happening in Long Beach. And you asked those questions of Mr. Brown, who joined us. And he was very gracious in providing data and sharing that information, but didn't have the specifics on the tutoring and what could possibly be happening at your school sites. And so Ms. Tammy Lavelle is going to provide that for us later today. As a reminder, our norms when we're together, we want to make sure that we're present and that we're minimizing distractions. Again, we have so many things and so many other items to consider and think about while we're here, but we thank you for being here. We want to seek to understand diverse points of view. We want to share the space that we create. We want to assume positive intentions of all of those that are here with us and a commitment of respect for all that are here. As we continue to meet virtually, some reminders of Zoom. We want to use the chat feature to share our thoughts. When it's time to share comments, make sure you raise your hand using the raised hand feature, keeping in mind that after every presenter, we will allow ample time to be able to ask comments or clarifying questions. You can mute your mic unless you're speaking to the general audience. And then we also ask that you strive to be visible. However, I know sometimes it can interfere with connectivity. And so if turning off your camera is better for you, then by all means, please feel free to do so. And so before we go ahead and move forward, I am going to ask for an approval of our agenda. I'll go back just so we're able to see it. And with the guests here, could we have anyone to motion for an approval of the agenda? You would state your first and last name and either the school or the office that you're representing. And that could be any guest that is here with us.
I'll do it, Carmen. So I am Rebecca Fast from the Equity, Engagement, and Partnerships Office, and I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Rebecca. Do we have a second?
My name is George Sy from the State and Federal Programs Office. I second.
Thank you, George. So we will go ahead and continue with our agenda. And so without further ado, we're going to go ahead and give the floor to Ms. Fast. She is here to give us updates on middle school and high school choice. So Ms. Fast, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and allow you to share your slides with us.
Okay, thank you, Carmen, and thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. I do have a few slides for everybody. It says participant screen sharing disabled, Ms. Carmen. I don't know.
See if we can try that again.
Yeah.
Let's see if it's
okay, let me see. There we go. Okay. Can you see my screen here? I have not shared screen since I've had the ability to have two screens. So I hope it's working. Is it working okay?
It's working. Okay. So just go to slideshow so we can see it in that form.
Oops. Ah. There we go. Sorry, everybody. Okay. So Carmen asked me to just share a few slides with everybody, and I'm sorry it's not at the beginning here, about high school choice and middle school updates. And so we're in the choice office here, where we do both choice. By choice, we mean the transition from 5th grade to 6th grade, and then also the transition from 8th grade to 9th grade. And so that's the two processes in which our office works on. And so I'm here just to share some updates with you. And it's not just myself working on these things, it's also my team that I work with. So I work with Stephanie Heiler, who I believe joined you earlier this year, the administrator in choice. I also work with Sam Keogh and Yolanda Huerta, who are some parent coordinators that I work with. And if you call on our phones and you get our helpline, most likely you're talking to one of the three of us. And then we also have Erica Montoya in our office, who's kind of our all-around help. She does a lot of help for us in our office. So that's our team. Here. And so some quick updates with high school and middle school choice. I'm actually going to start with middle school choice because we're about to really engage and launch the middle school choice application. Right now, we're both in the prepare and the explore phase for middle school choice. And so how can families prepare? Families can really prepare right now by making sure their parent view information is updated and accurate. So addresses are really important. We want to make sure that we're getting kids to the right middle school based on the address we have in Synergy. So I know a lot of families, you know, you signed up for Synergy or for Parent View back, you know, when your kiddos might have been in kindergarten and things might have changed. So that's one of the things we really want to make sure we're getting kids to their right middle school. So Parent View addresses is really correct. If you need to update or change your address, you will need to check in with your elementary school office. And so the enrollment clerk or somebody at your elementary school can help you if your address is incorrect. And also siblings. Sometimes we see that parents have 3 different parent view accounts and the siblings might not be linked up correctly. So we want to make sure that when you're doing the application, because siblings, we try to get siblings at the same middle school. And so we want to make sure that that's visible in your parent view. So if for some reason when you go to parent view and you log in, you don't see all of your kiddos, that's something that you can again ask somebody at your school site to help you with. It's an easy way to fix. You can link all of the kids to the same account. And if we can also help you in our office, and there's also, I think, a button in parent view where if you need help, you can click that too, and it goes to what's called Synergy Support, where they can also help you. Okay, so that's in the preparation phase. Those are things you can get ready. And right now we're really in the explore phase. A few weeks ago, we launched the explore phase with all of our 5th grade families. All of our 5th grade families were given an information packet, a virtual information packet from our office, from your school site. You might have gotten some handouts or some information from your school site too, but every family should have gotten an information packet about the dates for middle school choice and happenings around middle school choice. On January 12th, we launched a Canvas page, which I'll show you in a little bit. And right now, all of our middle schools are getting ready for some virtual meetings. And so here's the virtual information letter that went home. Something that you might want to print out if you have the ability to and put it on the fridge or at least just note it in your phone because there's a lot of information, important dates here and a lot of important information. So there's a list of dates and there's also some frequently asked questions that you'll see. As I mentioned, there was a Canvas course. So I'm going to click on this button and hope it works. On January 12th, every fifth grader had a Canvas course in their Canvas dashboard. And not only did the fifth graders get it, but if you are a parent observer, then you also have it in your phone and available for your family. So this is what all the families have access to. It's some important dates to remember. We had on January 4th a virtual parent meeting, and if you were able to watch it live, awesome, you can rewatch it here if you want to. And if you didn't see it, we have it available here in English, Spanish, and Khmer. So Stephanie Heilig did a wonderfully informative information session about middle school choice, and so you can watch that virtual parent meeting here. We have, again, some ideas of how to start preparing for middle school choice. And if you scroll down, in January and February, all of our middle school and K-8s are going to be hosting a virtual information session. And so all of the dates are here. So if you wanted to check out your home school and maybe one other school, you'll be able to attend those virtual information sessions. The links for all those sessions will be in here soon. We're just getting all the schools are setting up their links. So within a few days, you'll see links in here too for those sessions. If you scroll down, there's information on January 29th. It's going to be our virtual education celebration, and there will be some links here for you on that as well. And then the application. The application opens on February 7th, and it closes on February 21st. And so we'd like to encourage all of our fifth grade families to fill out an application. Even if you're choosing to go to your home school, in the application, you'll also be choosing electives. And so you'll be choosing your future sixth graders electives. So the application is important for placement. Even if you're planning on going to your home school across the street from your house, we encourage all of our fifth grade families to explore, to see what's out there, to see what electives your kids might be interested in. And then on February 7th and 21st, fill out that application. In Canvas, if you keep going further here, here's that frequently asked questions document, which you can get to again. You can explore all the middle schools, and I'm just going to click on that button here. When you click on that button, it takes you to all of our middle schools, their websites, and on the websites, you can find information about their electives, about their clubs, about their sports, about there's usually a couple of videos and photographs you can look at. So this is a really good way to check out what's happening at the school site, what's happening at these different middle schools. So we encourage you to explore. So there's some buttons there at the bottom. Let me go back. Sorry. Wait for the computer to catch up. So there's just a lot of information, I guess, is what I'm trying to say on that Canvas page. So we encourage all of our families to dig into the Canvas. Okay, I'm going to pause. Are there any questions that have come through? I can't see if there's any hands up. Carmen, are we good to keep going?
No, we're good to keep going, Rebecca.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to show another highlight, the virtual information nights. They are throughout the month of February. End of January, beginning of February at lots of different times. So if you wanted to go to two, you should be able to go even if they're on the same night because they are staggered. So you'll see some are starting at 5:40, some are starting at 4:20. We really wanted to make sure all families could attend one or more of these virtual meetings if they so chose to. So be sure to look out for the different dates. And there's also another way parents can get information is just on our middle school homepage. So if you go to lbschools.net, there's a tab called Parents, and it's right here, the Parents tab. And then you scroll down to School of Choice and then 5th to 6th transition. That will also take you to our webpage that has a lot of that same information. So you can look for it in Canvas. You can also find it on our LB Schools homepage. Okay, and then that application phase starts February 7th to the 21st. That's when it will be available in all parent view accounts. You can choose up to 3 middle schools besides your home school. So you can choose your home school, and then you can also choose up to 3 other middle school or K-8s throughout our district. And just a reminder that space is a contingent on space and availability. And so, residents do have priority at their home school, and then continuing K-8 students are placed. And then students with siblings, and then the rest of the school students are chosen just randomly through the computer system and placed at the school site. So just keep in mind the process and procedures for placement. Students who are dual immersion, if they go to Patrick Henry or if they go to Lafayette or Webster or one of our dual immersion schools, they will have access to Keller for a dual immersion site. And this,
so, Rebecca?
Yes.
Sorry, we do have
that's okay. Oh, good. Yeah.
If we can go ahead and verify how parents can access the new videos that provide an overview of the school's programs.
The new videos, I think if they might be talking about the ones that will be on for education celebration. Those
Yes.
will be available January 29th. And so there will be a link that will be sent out to all families via school messenger with all of the links for those videos. And we will have that link also on our webpage for middle school choice. And it will be in our Canvas page, and I'm sure it'll be on our district website as well. So each school is right now creating a video that highlights their school. You'll meet the principal, you'll perhaps meet some students or teachers. So each school right now is creating a unique video that will be for education celebration. Those will all be available on January 29th.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, definitely. Here's just a little bit of data, and I won't go too far in the weeds of this, except to just understand in our office, we hear a lot of parents saying, why didn't I get my first choice? And while about 85% of fifth graders did get their first choice last year, a few didn't. And here's can be perhaps an explanation why. I'll take Hughes, for example, or let's take even Marshall. Marshall tends consistently to be one of our most popular middle schools in our district. And so last year, for example, they had 390 fifth graders choose it as their top spot as the school that they wanted to attend, but they only had seats for 315. So you'll see right off the bat, there's several students who wouldn't have gotten their first choice. And so just keep in mind that, it is a computer system lottery that again will place residents first and then siblings and et cetera. And sometimes there's just not many seats left at the end. Newcomb also tends to be a popular school, but it's really small. They only have 105 fifth graders, but they had, I think these numbers should be reversed. They had 147 students put it as their first choice, and they only had seats for 105. And so, just keep those numbers in mind when applying to some of our middle schools. Here's just that timeline. Sixth graders will find out their placement on April 21st. So on April 21st, the assignments will be placed on Parent View. And so that's the middle school timeline. Okay, I'm going to jump right into high school choice, because high school choice, the choice window it ended on, I think it was January 18th. So it was open January 5th through the 18th. And right now, the computer wheels are processing and placing all of those students, and placements will be available for high schoolers on February 10th. And then on February 10th through the 24th, eighth grade parents, they have an appeal window where maybe they want to go back to their home school, or for something happened in the choice process, they did not get their first choice. There is an appeal window. And then all placements will be finished by March 4th. And so we're kind of in the middle of the processing time for high school choice. And so that's really exciting. I know a lot of eighth graders are excited for that next step and that next phase of school. And they will find out on February 10th of their high school placement for next year. So, and again, just like middle school, it's based on space and availability. Okay. And always, if you have questions, we are happy to answer questions. We're happy to explain and help parents understand these processes. We're a big district, but we are really good about returning calls. We're really good about that human and personal touch with our services. So you can email us at mschoicehelp.net or parentuniversity@lbschools.net, or you can give us a call and leave a message on our helpline at 562-997-8306. And we're really good about returning calls. So you'll usually get a call within the same day or by the next business day. So if you have questions, we'd be happy to answer questions. We really want to make sure parents understand and answer all their questions, if we can help. Okay, I think that's all I got, Carmen. Did any questions come through while I was
None on the chat.
on?
No, none on the
Okay.
chat. We did have a couple of
Okay.
parents join us recently. And so I
Okay.
don't know if they would like to ask any clarifying questions about middle school or high school choice. Parents and guests, remember that we always have a link also. If you don't get an opportunity or you can't think of a question now, you always have that link to be able to ask questions of us. And then we get back to you specifically from that person that asked that question. And so let's see, I don't see any questions now. Also, for the guests that just joined us, we have interpretation available. So if you look down at your Zoom dashboard at the very bottom, there is a little globe. And so you can either select Spanish or Khmer for interpretation. We also have Angel Garcia, who in the chat is placing our agenda, and he's also placing our attendance link. So make sure that you're able to fill that out. If you have any trouble filling out the attendance link, your first, last name, and the school or program that you're representing added to the chat would be sufficient. So again, any questions for Rebecca before she heads out to cheer on a soccer game?
I am. I'm headed to the game. Milliken Wilson.
She's a district parent, yes.
Well, thank you, everybody. And again, if you have questions, our office, we are all, we're really willing to help answer those questions. So if anything comes up later, please feel free to email us or give us a call. And thank you, Carmen, for inviting us to be here today.
Thank you so much for being here. And so again, we'll just take a quick little breather before we go ahead and we transition into our LCAP addendum and our revisions for 2022 from Mr. James Suarez.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm very thankful to have some time with you today. I know that this is the most interesting topic, which is the federal addendum. And I'm going to kind of talk it through because when people talk about LCAP, they think about the state local control funding formula. And that is absolutely correct. This does have LCAP in its name, but it's not the LCAP. So this is called the LCAP Federal Addendum. So I want to be really clear about that up front. This is not the LCAP. It's not the state requirement. It is the LCAP Federal Addendum. And I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about what it is and why we have to do some revisions today. So with that, let me share my screen. There, I think this is it. Okay, now I lost everybody to see everybody, but hopefully I'm sharing the screen. Ah, there you are. Yeah. I see you. It's up.
Good. You're up. You're good to go.
All right. Thank you. All right. So as I said before, we're talking about the LCAP Federal Addendum, not the LCAP. So I'm going to go into a little more detail about that because I think it is important to understand what we're talking about here. And we're doing some revisions that are necessary. So let me get right to it. So what is the LCAP Federal Addendum? Well, if you look at the shared screen and you see the name LCAP Federal Addendum, it is part of the Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA. That is a federal program, not a state program. And why is that significant? Well, the LCAP, which is the state program that you're all aware of, and we've been talking about the local control funding formula or the local control accountability plan, LCAP, it fulfills much of the federal ESSA requirements, but not all of them. So the federal government, when they give the district money, says, yes, the LCAP is going to work for a lot of the requirements, but you're going to have to add to it. And that's why they call this the addendum. The original LCAP Federal Addendum was approved in 2019. So it's a couple years old here, but new laws require a revision. So I'm going to talk today about the 2019 version of the LCAP Federal Addendum, very briefly to show you what it is. And then I'm going to talk very much more in detail and very specifically about the revisions that we are proposing for the Board of Education to approve. So let's see what we got here. So these are the required items of the LCAP Federal Addendum. There are narratives for each of the areas that the state LCAP does not address. These items listed on the screen and on the next slide, combined with the state LCAP, completes the requirements for ESSA, or the federal requirements. So when we look at this, this is the entire federal addendum along with the next slide. So it talks about Title I. Most of you are very familiar with Title I. And these are the different sections, the 5 different sections of the Title I part of the federal addendum that is not addressed in the LCAP. And that's why we have to address it here. For Title II, these are, and that Title II is supporting effective instruction. A lot of people know it by professional development. These are the 3 areas that are not a part of the state LCAP, So we have to add to the federal addendum. Title III is language instruction for ELs and immigrant students. These are the 4 areas that are not addressed in the LCAP, so we have to address them in the federal addendum. And Title IV, which is a newer title, and many of you may not have heard of it, so today I want to go into a little more detail about it, is called Student Support and Academic Enrichment. And it's just one narrative for that. So that constitutes the entire LCAP federal addendum. And these are the parts that are missing, that are required by the federal government, that are missing in the LCAP. So I hope that kind of gives you the context about what I'm talking about here. So we're going to talk about the material revisions today. And we do have some major revisions in the LCAP federal addendum, and they're going to appear in 4 sections. Title I, Part A, Educator Equity, is a revision. Title II, the revisions are in prioritizing funding and data and ongoing consultation. And Title IV for activities and programs. These are revisions that are major revisions in our federal addendum that we need to talk more thoroughly about today. And I'm really going to go into a lot of, I'm sorry about that. I'm really going to go into a lot of detail about educator equity, because this section had to be rewritten because of a change in the definition of the law. So I'm going to spend quite a bit of time on educator equity, but just know that these are the 4 sections of the LCAP federal addendum that we are making revisions to in order to satisfy the federal requirements. So let me move forward. Let's talk about educator equity for a second. This section was completely revised because it needed to include a new analysis of our teaching staff. In addition, there was a change in the definition for analysis, and I'm going to present that change, which makes a huge difference in terms of our analysis. But this is what educator equity in the LCAP federal addendum is asking for a study. The first question is, are minority students being taught at higher rates than other students by out-of-field teachers, inexperienced teachers, or ineffective teachers? The second question that we have to answer is, are low-income students taught at higher rates than other students by, same 3 groups, out-of-field teachers, inexperienced teachers, or ineffective teachers? Now you're going to ask, what do those mean? And that's a really great question, because that is what we have to determine in our study. What are out-of-field teachers? What are inexperienced teachers? And what are ineffective teachers? And when I look at some of these things, I go, wow, that's kind of hurtful, or kind of a, I don't know, very concerning identification about teachers. But I'm going to switch into, let's talk about that and how they define it. Because when I look at ineffective, I'm like, wow, that's pretty harsh. But it's not really what you probably think. So I'm going to talk about the definitions right now. Let's first talk about out-of-field teachers. In this slide, what you see is the 4 areas of permits or credentials that you might know that a teacher may have that would be considered out of field in terms of this LCAP federal addendum. And I'm showing you this because I want to say how many teachers we have in each of these categories. So out of field teachers in this district, for teachers holding emergency permits, there are 18 teachers in this district. That's less than 1% of our teaching force. Limited assignment permits, which are called GLAP or SELAP. There are 10 teachers in this district that hold one of those permits. And again, that's less than 1% of the teacher force. Waivers, that means that the teacher is granted a waiver by the state in order to teach what they're teaching. And usually this is something that they're well, all of these actually are something that they have to gain more either experience or go to school, back to school, university to gain their full credential. So these are, again, these are very limited and they're very temporary, I guess it would probably be the best way to put it. These are temporary permits allowed by the state for teachers to teach. With a waiver, we have 11 teachers, and again, that's less than 1% of our teaching staff. As you can see, these three in itself, these are very, very small amounts of teachers compared to our huge teaching staff in this district. So there's not a lot of people that hold these temporary permits, and they are required to, by law, clear these permits by taking university courses or other training to be able to get a full teaching credential. But the last one is we do have a lot of teachers under a board authorization, which is a local authorization. These three permits are issued by the state of California. This board authorization is a local decision. And let me talk you through that because I really want to be very clear about this. A board authorization is an education code that allows a local board of education to authorize fully credentialed teachers. I'm going to repeat that. It authorizes fully credentialed teachers if they have at least 12 university units for a middle school course or 18 university units to teach a high school course that's not on their credential. And let me give you an example because I could be a teacher. I hold a full credential, but I do have more than 18 units in English. And if the school asked me to teach English with my regular credential, I couldn't because I don't have an English credential. But the Board of Education could authorize me to teach an English class with the amount of units that I took in the university. So that's what a board of authorization is. And you'll see that we have 231 teachers in our district that hold a full credential, but are authorized to teach in a different subject than what their credential lists. And that's 6.9% of our teaching force. I'm going to talk a little bit about this more because I think when I show you the data, you're going to see that this here is probably one that we need to take a look at in reducing the amount of board authorizations. And I have an idea for that. So, but bear with me on that. Let's go on to the next category. The first one was out of field teachers, and these are inexperienced teachers. And these are teachers with 2 or less years of teaching experience. So these are our newer teachers in our district. And we have 129 of those teachers, which is approximately 4% of the teaching force. Again, a small amount of teachers in our district. And again, when they finish their year of teaching, then they move up to maybe a more experienced teacher, obviously, because they've had a year of teaching. Finally is the one that we all probably would be mostly concerned about, which would be ineffective. And that term to me is a little harsh, very concerning. But an ineffective teacher means that they hold a different type of permit. And again, these permits are temporary, kind of like the out of field teachers, but these are permits that are internship or very short amount of term that we're saying you can teach this class. We used to call these types of permits emergency or temporary permits. So these permits are also issued by the state. So what we have is a provisional internship permit. There's only one teacher in a district that holds that. A short-term staff permit, we have 8 teachers. A variable term waiver, 2 teachers. Or a substitute permit, we have no teachers that are teaching currently in a regular class with a substitute permit. So as you can see, the ineffective teachers that are by definition, these are the federal definition of what an ineffective teacher is. We have less than 1%, very small amount of teachers here. So now that we know the definition about what these teachers are, I'm going to show you data. And this is data about how our minority students, which will be the next slide, or how our low-income students are being taught at the different rates of these particular definitions of teachers. So let me start with minority students. Here's a chart that shows the study regarding our minority students and how they're taught. We used a couple of metrics to do this analysis. So here's our two metrics that we decided would be probably the best part of our study to be able to garner, are we teaching these minority students at a rate that's higher with out of field teachers or inexperienced teacher or ineffective teachers. So the criteria, the out of field, as you can see, inexperienced and ineffective are here. And these are the two different comparisons we're making. So the first comparison is the 10 schools in the district with the highest rate of minority students. And then we compared how many teachers are out of field, inexperienced, or ineffective with the 10 schools that have the lowest rate of minority students. And here's what we came up with. We have very small gaps in the types of teachers that are teaching minority students with this criteria. We use a second method to say, okay, let's see, instead of the 10 highest and the 10 lowest, let's see schools that serve 75% versus schools that serve less than 75% minority students. And here's what we came up with. And again, the gaps here are very small. So, I mean, that's really good news in that we don't think that our minority students are adversely or affected or being taught at rates very much higher if they're at a school with large amounts of minority students or a school with small amounts of minority students. So this is really good data to have to say that it sounds like we're serving our minority students in a way that is shows a lot of equity. Yes, there is a gap, so we're not going to diminish that gap. But I think that it looks like in terms of the criteria, we're doing fairly well. There's not a big gap. If you were to see like 15%, 20%, 30% here, then oh my gosh, we do have an issue, but we don't. We see a very, very small gap. Same type of data is going to be for our low income students, and we use the exact same criteria, 10 schools with the highest rates of low income students and the 10 schools with the lowest rates. And we also did the 75% low income and versus schools serving 74% or lower of low income students. And we see not a big gap. Now, what I can say about this, though, is when I take a look at this gap, and this gap seems to be, also this gap seems to be the largest of any of the gaps that we're looking at, it's still small, 5.4 and 4.6%. But it's something that I think that we should look at. And I attribute this to our board authorizations. And that's why I wanted to talk to you about that at the very beginning when we talked about the definitions, because I think that there can be some improvement in the way that we're taking a look at board authorizations for fully credentialed teachers. So let me show you the conclusions that we're making regarding educator equity. We currently don't have significant disparities for serving minority or low income students, certainly not significant. But I am going to highlight the fact that our board authorizations, we have 60% of our board authorizations are in the core subjects, which are science, English, math, and social studies. And so that is a little bit concerning. I would hope that we would start focusing on, as a district, on looking at master scheduling protocols or processes at the middle and high school levels. Because what happens usually when you're making a master schedule and you have a one-off, like somebody's teaching 5 periods of geometry, but that 6th period we don't have anybody for, that's when we take a look to see, oh yeah, what teacher has the amount of units that's called a board authorization. And what we want to do is we want to take a look at our master scheduling to significantly improve the fact that we don't need to use somebody on a board authorization. I think that's quite important, and we're going to look into that a little bit more based on our data that we just showed. So that I want to take a long time talking about, because we had to rewrite the entire educator equity section of the Lcap Federal Addendum. So I'll pause here for a second. And Carmen, do we have anything? I can't see the chat or anything else. So do we have anything that could be a question here? I'll stop sharing for a second.
So we don't have anything in the chat, but parents joining us, guests joining us, if you have any clarifying questions for Mr. Suarez specific to that section of educational equity, go ahead and unmute and he'll be happy to answer.
This is Janice Filer.
Hi, Janice. How are you?
Welcome.
Good to see you. Good to see you
too. I just, what do I want to say? I'm a retired educator in Long Beach that still is involved in HR, and I help with the hiring process. But I just want to say that I think Long Beach is doing a great job in recruiting teachers that are qualified. And that report that Mr. Suarez just gave just confirms my feelings that the gap is not that large and that Long Beach is still a cutting edge district that's doing a great job in hiring teachers. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Janice, for that. I appreciate that. You know, one of the other pieces, Janice, that the recruitment and ensuring that we have teachers not only highly qualified, but also teachers that students can see themselves in. We've been working on that too, but it's also about assigning teachers to schools and what that process is to ensure that we are having a more diverse staff and a place where students see themselves in those teachers and the teaching staff. So I appreciate that, Janice.
We have a raised hand, Miss Alicia Coulter. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. To the point, so my family and I, we live in Lakewood and we intentionally drive to Cabrillo, and you'll hear background noise because my kids are home. So, but we drive to Cabrillo intentionally because we really like the sacrament program and the engineering program on campus. I wasn't going to say anything until there were kudos brought up about the staff. And not that the staff, meaning they're teaching, that's not what I don't speak to that. I will speak to the staff representing the culture of the campus. And that's not a fact. That's not a fact. My kids have gone to Bancroft, Lakewood, and now Cabrillo. And I would say that Cabrillo lost a really great Black female math teacher that my children really appreciated having on campus. And there needs to be harder recruitment for Black men and Black women on these campuses. I actually worked with a school once, and one of my suggestions to them is they need to go to HBCUs and intentionally find Black teachers in those spaces. There has to be an intention, because we know when you look at the data, the group that is struggling the most on campuses are going to be your Black students. And my husband is a Black male, and he's a teacher for Los Angeles Unified School District, and he's an anomaly. Okay, he's an anomaly. He's a unicorn, and that's not a good thing. There should be far more in those spaces, and so that means more money for teachers. That means intentionally seeking out these teachers. That means bonuses like you would give in corporate America. That means thinking outside of the box. I'm just saying, if you're one of recruit them into education, they're going to go work for Northrop because Northrop's going to give them that bonus to come work for them. If you're not going to give them a bonus, why are they going to come work for you when they have to manage their household? So I just wanted to make sure that we can throw out stats and give ourselves kudos and how great of a job. We also have to be real with the things that must be done in these spaces. And I'm speaking for the Black community because that's who I represent professionally and personally. Thank you.
I really appreciate that. Thank you for bringing that up. When our assistant superintendent of HR, his name is David Zaid, one of his goals has exactly what you were speaking to, Ms. Coulter. Exactly. We're talking about recruiting at Historically Black colleges and universities. He has he has data that surrounds some of the improvements that have been made. Are we there yet? Absolutely not. But what you just said is really important to bring out, because the data is there that suggests that we do need to ensure that we have more diversity in our teaching and staff, all staff, not just teaching force included, but all staff. And I know that Mr. Zaid, in fact, maybe Mr. Zaid can come, Carmen, and talk about his plan, but he does have a really intense plan surrounding this, and it's also a superintendent's goal as well. So we are putting a spotlight on it where the spotlight may not have been in the past. So appreciate that very much.
Yes, thank you. And I'll add a plug to our parent university as well, that there is also an emphasis on looking at historically Black colleges and universities and bringing that to the forefront and having those discussions as well. Ms. Small, Megan Small from Herrera, thank you for being here. She has a question.
Thank you. Yes, so in speaking to the board authorized out of field teachers who you were saying maybe under different emergency authorizations are teaching a subject that they're not credentialed in, is there a plan for those teachers to become credentialed in those subjects, or is there support to encourage that so that we can easily keep a teacher in their same role but get them credentialed so that we can improve that percentage?
Thank you. That's a really, really great question. The answer to that is yes. And at different school sites as well as centrally, we are encouraging teachers to have multiple credentials. You know, it does require more university work to be able to get a second credential or an add-on to your regular full credential. But that said, we do have a lot of teachers who are not only exploring that, but getting the different types of credentials to be able to do that. Now, we're not looking to, like, when we're doing the hiring, we're not looking for teachers with the board authorization in mind. We are looking for fully credentialed teachers and placing them into the subject matter that they have a credential for. What generally happens with a board authorization is it is an after the fact issue. The teacher's been teaching, but at the master schedule, we have a certain amount of students that come in, and we build a master schedule with 6 periods for each child. And then we're looking and we say, oh, wait a minute, we have 1 period here where we're missing a teacher. And that's the cause of a board authorization. It's not a board authorization. A board authorization would never be handed to somebody to say, here you go, keep this on your record. It is not that. A board authorization is for only that one particular course and for that one particular year. And the other piece to that is a board authorization must be agreed to by the teacher. So the district or a principal can't say, okay, you're going to teach this course with the board authorization. A board authorization has to be agreed to. So that in itself would be, if I'm asked to do it and I don't feel confident, even though I have a full credential in mathematics, but I don't feel confident in teaching that science course, I can say, no, thank you. I don't want the board authorization. So I hope that answers the question. It's not something that we look to do originally, but we look to do it after we look at the master schedules of each of the students. And this only happens in some middle schools and some high schools, and it doesn't necessarily happen every single year. It depends upon the amount of students that are coming to us. It could happen at an elective because the students are wanting an elective and we just don't have the credential for that elective. So with that, Carmen, let me move on. I have a little bit to go and I have about 8 minutes. So I just want to make sure I get to the rest of the presentation. So let me share my screen here. But thank you for those questions. I'm really appreciative of the questions that are coming up. That part, the Title I Educator Equity was a big lift. for this particular plan. The rest of these things are a little smaller in terms of the revisions are a lot smaller than that one. I just really wanted to make sure that that was something that I got to. So let's talk a little bit about Title II. So for Title II, there are two parts to two revisions. One is funding, and the next slide is going to be about consultation. So the Title I budget categories that we are projecting is professional development budget. Oh, by the way, Title II is about a little over $2 million. Professional development, we're budgeting 79% for training and workshops for our teachers. Of the $2 million, the $2 million for of the 17% is for transitional kindergarten, class size reduction, and equitable services, which I'll do very quickly, is 2% of that budget, and indirect costs is 3% budget. Let me say this really quick. This is not the only funding source that we use for professional development. I need to say that because this is only the federal part of professional development. There are a lot of other resources that we use for training teachers and staff. This is just the federal dollars that we're receiving under Title II. Like I said, about $2 million. Let me go into equitable services really quickly. We are required to provide services to our private schools who wish to take it, and what that means is that they are eligible to provide professional development to their staff. If you want to know more about that, I have a lengthy conversation offline about that, but it is a federal law. Last is the indirect costs part. Indirect costs are costs that are generated, but aren't really directly involved in the Title II professional development. For example, if I'm in a after school professional development activity, and the lights are still on, we still have to pay the bill. So what indirect cost does is it takes a small amount, and this is a state approved amount, 3%, that we take off for those types of things to contribute to the phone bill, the light bill, the heating, the water, all of that stuff. That's what indirect costs are. Secondly, we did some revising about consultation. And what this talks about is multiple sources of data that the district uses when we plan for professional development activities. And you can see the data that are noted there, those specific assessment process, so that we can actually provide really quality professional development to our staff. Lastly, I'm going to go into Title IV. Title IV is fairly new, so I'd like to talk a little bit about what Title IV is first. And Title IV is a federal program. It's intended to improve the academic achievement by increasing, and I look at three buckets: well-rounded education, improving school conditions, and technology. Those are the three areas that are permissible expenses for Title IV. So I'm going to get into what we're doing with it. For well-rounded education, we have 32% of the budget for Title IV. And again, the Title IV's budget is about the same as Title II, about 2.8 million-ish. 32% of that is for well-rounded education. 42% of it is for school conditions, and 18% of it is for technology. And again, we have to do equitable services by law, and we also have to do indirect costs by law. Now, that's what it is. Let's find out more specifically what we're doing with it or budgeting for. Well-rounded education, we're emphasizing music, and we are really emphasizing more specifically accompanists at the high schools. So this Title IV budget, part of Title IV budget, is paying for accompanists at the high schools, and they help with the music instructor with technical aspects of a performance or a performer. For school conditions, we are putting our money into enhancing healthy and safe school environments, using staff assistants and intervention specialists supporting our secondary schools. And for technology, this one's an easy one. We're looking at specific technology for student use with individual use devices. So we're really trying to put some money here. Again, this is the federal part of the funding for Title IV. Please remember that technology, we're not just spending the small amount that we're putting in for Title IV, but we've got a lot in the LCAP about technology and a lot with Title I in it for technology. So there's multiple resources that we use, in this case for technology, but also for the other areas. But I wanted to share with you for Title IV. So lastly, where can I find the addendum? Well, the addendum, once it's fully approved by the board, will be really easy to find. If you go onto www.lbschools.net and go to the A through Z index, which is always on the top of your screen, click on that, click on L for LEA plan, and click on the LEA or Local Educational Agency plan, and you will see the board approved addendum. Right now, you can go to that right now. You will see the 2019 version. Hopefully soon, if the board decides to act on this, you will see the new revision with the biggest, like I said, the biggest revision was the Educator Equity revision. And thank you very much. And look at that. It's little short of 3:30. And I know my friend Tammy is here at 3:30, so I wanted to make sure I give her all the time that she needs for her wonderful presentation. Pretty good timing. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And if there are any questions that come up after this, please, Carmen, could you get that to me, and I'd be happy to answer them offline, or I can send you the answers to those questions, and you can send them out to the participants here.
Yes, thank you so much, Jim. Thank you for the thorough information. Thank you for our participants for asking those clarifying questions and for just providing that insight. And so kind of segueing into Miss Lavelle being here with us. Thank you so much for being here. Tammy Lavelle is the Director of Initiatives and Accountability in our Office of Curriculum Instruction and Professional Development. And as a result of the feedback and the questions that we received during last month's meeting, we did have clarifying questions for specific parents and specific school sites, but we thought it was important if Tammy came and gave us an overview of what those tutoring initiatives are. And that way, if we have any clarifying questions, she can either answer them here, or she can go ahead and get back to us with those answers. And so, Tammy, thank you so much for being here, for taking time out of your schedule. Angel has added our agenda in our chat once again, so you're welcome to follow along and see what we are learning. So, Tammy, go ahead.
So, hi, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And so, as Carmen shared, I am in the Office of Curriculum Instruction and Professional Development, and I'm supporting our district with our new tutoring interventions. So during our time together, these are just a couple of guiding questions that will just guide my presentation with all of you in support of getting this information to you. And so what I want to share with you is just a little bit of information about our current models of tutoring in our district, our new tutoring initiative, and what we're calling effective tutoring. In addition, I also want to just give you some information about our school sites and just sharing with you in response to all of these options for tutoring, what does that mean from our schools? So you just have a little information about that, in addition to how a big question I get often is, so how do I access tutoring as a parent for my child? And so just to give you some information, currently in our district, we primarily have two models for tutoring. And one of those models are fully site designed and facilitated at schools. So this would look like the school has identified an academic need and they're using their teachers to provide tutoring, traditionally before or after school. In addition, we do have another model with outside vendors. So this looks like the school identifies a need, and they have a relationship with an outside vendor where that outside vendor provides the tutors to co-facilitate this intervention. So what is new with our new tutoring initiative is that we have added some additional opportunities for students to receive tutoring by blending some new resources. And those resources include newly available pandemic recovery funding from both the state and federal governments, and the current research that's out about effective tutoring. So during the pandemic, something called high dosage tutoring received a lot of attention. And it's a very specific way of delivering an intervention that happens during the school day. And so we use some research about that in addition to these resources that we had to identify some new tutoring options for students to support the core program that they were receiving. And so these initiatives are in our Learning Acceleration and Support Plan under pillar number 2 or pillar number 1, which is academic acceleration and support. And the initiative for tutoring includes an outside vendor in a different way. So our old model, our sites identified the need. This new intervention, we as a district have identified the need. And what this new model supports is K2 foundational reading skills and 3 through 12 math. And that's because when we looked at trends in student growth during the pandemic, there appeared to be a greater opportunity for growth in math as compared to reading. And some of that national trend data matched some of our initial SBAC testing that we received. And so we released an RFP, which is a it's a request for proposals from vendors. And we asked them to submit a proposal based on the following criteria that we identified as being most effective. And this came from a combination of research we did about effective models for tutoring, such as high dosage, and then of course our own models for tutoring that were happening in our district. And we identified the following. So our expectation is that we use the most high qualified person to deliver the intervention. Of course, that's the classroom teacher when possible. That it is provided at a minimum of 3 days per week, and you'll see 30 minutes. 30 minutes is an average. What the research has shown and what we're saying is effective would be for our youngest scholars, such as kinder, first or second grade students receiving support in foundational reading skills. That session should be about 20 minutes. And then for our 4th, 5th, and older students, 45 minutes to an hour is appropriate. But the 3 days a week is consistent. That students also receive this intervention in small groups. Very different than tutoring models that we've initiated in the past. And a small group being defined as 5 or less students. That it is offered both before and after the school day, which is traditional here in Long Beach, but also during the school day. And so a during the school day model would look like a tutor coming into the classroom, and after core instruction, because we're supplementing core instruction, not replacing core instruction, but after core instruction, providing aligned support for students. And then you'll see that all of the support, we expect it to be aligned with classroom curriculum, and that is to ensure acceleration. We don't want to remediate when we know that our students need some remediation, but our expectation is that if you're going to remediate, That is just to support you accelerating and not getting stuck in remediation. And so we are, that was one of our biggest requests as folks were submitting their proposals, is that we wanted to ensure that they were clear, that we are staying as close as we can to the scope and sequence of the daily instruction in our classrooms with this intervention, that we offer professional development for our tutors, both from the vendors and from our district, and that there is a strong focus on centering relationships for our students. We know that it's difficult sometimes to pull students into interventions, and we want our students to feel a strong sense of belonging and that they want to go to receive this additional support in the way that it's offered. So putting a lot of emphasis on how do we ensure that our students are feeling that sense of belonging. And right now we're starting by ensuring that this tutor who's working with our student is consistent. So that's been a little bit of one of our preliminary struggles, but definitely something that we see as effective and something that we will continue to focus on. So from that is really what the district has identified for the newest tutoring intervention. So we have a menu of tutoring options at school sites. As I shared at the beginning, there's some tutoring that is being delivered by teachers, and then of course there are some tutoring with outside vendors, and then there's new tutoring with outside vendors. And so for a site, the site's responsibility to this is that they would determine how those options are being utilized at their school site based on the needs of their students. They are also responsible for identifying the students who qualify for these interventions. At each of our school sites, we have a lead who is leading our tutoring efforts, and their responsibility is to ensure that these interventions are happening with fidelity. So they're in charge of facilitating and overseeing these interventions, and then progress monitoring the implementation efforts, and of course our student achievement as they access the interventions. And so what a big question that is asked is, so how do I know if my child qualifies or will receive an intervention? So the first thing would be is you would wait to be notified, because the schools are identifying and notifying families. Then we would recommend that you would go to the classroom teacher, and always going to the classroom teacher, who should know your child's achievement the best at the school site, to determine if their need can be met in the classroom, or in fact they do need to access one of the options that are being offered at their school site. And then of course you can always go to your classroom or to your school counselor. And then finally, just in having a brief conversation about how we are in this together. So if your child qualifies for one of the interventions, it is a true shared responsibility that we are ensuring that it's being delivered with fidelity, and that you're helping us by ensuring that your child is attending school regularly, that you're also ensuring that you are communicating with your child's teachers, that we are doing our best to ensure that how we're delivering these interventions is supporting our students' sense of belonging by providing daily positive encouragement as well, alongside all of you, parents who are in the audience, and then ensuring that you're asking questions about your child's achievement and how you can help us by supporting your children at home. And so in a nutshell, that's a little bit about our new tutoring interventions and how they're supporting tutoring that's already happening in our district. And so if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them if I can.
Thank you so much, Tammy. I think a lot of what you touched upon was asked of us during our last meeting, and I know we had connected. So thank you for that specificity. I don't see any questions in the chat. If any of our parents or guardians or guests have questions that they would like to ask of Ms. Lavelle, please unmute your mic, and this would be the time to do so. Okay, so we are going to make sure that we include the link in our chat, parents and guests. If you have any questions that come up later on, that link is never closed. So if you even have a question from our September meeting that comes to mind that you want to address, feel free to pop those in and we'll get back to you. We do have a thank you, Miss Lavelle, from Corey. Oh, is it Ide? Corey, do you want to unmute so I know how to pronounce your last name correctly?
Sure, it is. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Mr. Ide.
Okay.
Well, it was a pleasure being with you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. So I am going to go back and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. And I want to take us back to, we've gone through this portion here. We've gone through here, and thank you, Ms. Lavelle. And so I did want to go ahead and take the opportunity to share with you a little commercial that we have to celebrate our education celebration. As you know, or maybe you don't, it is now going to be virtual. And so earlier in our meeting, when Ms. Fast alluded to each of the school sites creating a little video and being available, that's this coming Saturday that these videos are going to be available. So going to the A through Z index on lbschools.net, you can search for Education Celebration. And I'm going to play this commercial that our multimedia colleagues put together with Dr. Lucy Salazar, who is the Director of Equity Engagement and Partnerships.
Welcome to our virtual education celebration page. I am Dr. Lucy Salazar, Director of the Office of Equity, Engagement, and Partnerships. This web portal will allow visitors to explore all of our elementary, middle, and K-8 schools and discover what each school has to offer. If you're on a laptop or desktop computer, you'll find navigation on the left to browse our elementary and middle and K-8 schools. If you are on a mobile device, you may find this navigation at the top of the page. Directly below this video, you will find additional information about our parent involvement groups and additional programs such as dual language immersion, migrant education, GATE, and our after-school WRAP programs. Thank you so much for visiting our page. Welcome to our virtual education celebration.
And so at this time, I do want to encourage you to go back into your agenda and let me stop sharing my screen and then I'll go ahead and I'll show us. We have a couple of announcements in our agenda. Two actually are job opportunities in our district that I did want to go ahead and highlight for you. I'm going to pull that up before I share. Thought I had it ready. So, Angel, we have our agenda in the chat, so I'm going to do it that way. Thank you for being patient. Angel, do you mind dropping it in the chat one more time? Thank you. There we go. Perfect. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Thank you for your patience. I did want you to go ahead and be able to see this a little bit larger. So whenever we're talking about our agenda or presentations, everything is here in one place for you. Our agenda is in English, Spanish, and Khmer. And so we like to post this the Monday before our Thursday meeting. So you can look for it that Monday afternoon. It's going to have our Dcac link. It's going to have a link for attendance. So that way, when you join us, you can go ahead and feel free to sign in. Or if you're watching us via YouTube, by all means, fill out the attendance link so you can get credit for joining us for this particular meeting. In addition, you're going to see any of the agenda items that we're going to cover or topics that we're going to cover during that meeting. And the presentation, the slide presentation that I share with you is available for you here in English. And if you scroll down in Spanish, and in addition, if you scroll down further in Khmer. Meeting minutes are also available for you here. At the time, we don't have enough of our parents present to be able to vote on them. And so I encourage you to review the minutes. And when we reunite in February, hopefully we can go ahead and vote and approve the minutes as Mr. Garcia has presented to us. In addition, we have Mr. Suarez's presentation there in English, Spanish, and Khmer, and I will be adding Ms. Lavelle's presentation. And this is the portion I wanted to go ahead and share with you. You have a link for the Education Celebration commercial that I shared with you in case you forget how to find it and navigate through it on Saturday. You can watch it there also. But here are the two bullets that indicate the vacancies currently in our district. So you can go ahead and you can click on both of these. The most recent is our business partnerships specialist. And so that also falls under the Office of Equity Engagement and Partnerships. And so they are looking for 2 individuals to join their team. So I encourage you, those members in the community, those parents, to go ahead and take a look at those and see if that's something that is of interest to you or someone that you know. Also want to remind you that our next Dcac meeting will be held February 24th. For now, we're still counting on it to be virtual. However, if anything changes, you will receive communication from me. Encourage those friends, neighbors, if they're not joining us for Dcac, encourage them to become a representative for their school and join us. There are also links in our agenda for other parent meetings and our family resource centers. If there aren't any other questions, if there aren't anything, any other clarifying comments that you'd like to make, I'll stop sharing my screen and you're welcome to show your lovely faces on our video. I'll go ahead and I'll bring our meeting to adjournment at 3:50 p.m.